Hello, everyone. It's Steve Garfield from stevegarfield.com, and welcome to another episode of Hello, Millie, where we talk to my mom and we bring her on the show. Hello, Millie.
Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone. Oh, it's so good to be here tonight. Looking forward to this evening.
Well, it's good to see you once again. Another week went by. That was a quick week.
Right. It sure was. Every week is a quick week.
So we are going to talk about who are you like, your mom or your dad? That is going to be today's question. And we have a photo that we're going to share. And this right here is your mom and dad, my grandparents. So what would you like to say about this old-time photo?
Okay. When Steve heard that I was going to be answering this question about who am I like, my mother or my father, he also found a picture of my mother and father's wedding picture where I wasn't at. And I think I might have seen that picture once or twice. And when I saw the picture of them, I said, look at that couple. They're getting married and they both look sad. So what's the story here? And I kept thinking about it. The more I thought about it, I thought maybe in that era, this goes back to in the 20s, 1920s, maybe at that time when they were told to take a photograph, they were told not to smile. So I'm wondering about the people that are watching the show. What do you remember? Did the people who were going to start a new life together, did they look solemn like that? So I'm anxious to hear a response on that. And from there, I'll go on to who am I more like?
Okay, so I think, and
Yes,
let's see what the people in the comments say,
good.
but that's a really old photo. So there was a time when, in order to take these photos, the shutter wasn't fast enough, and if people moved, it would become blurry. So the people had to stay very still.
Oh,
So I think that if they were smiling, then their mouth they couldn't hold a smile that long. So they were probably told, like you were saying, what they would probably told was to stay still.
okay.
So, how long can you smile? But with your mouth closed, I think you could stay pretty still for a while. So I would think that's the answer. Let's see what Bruce Jones says. It looks like their faces have been made up. Yeah, I think you can see some rouge.
Oh, yeah. I don't doubt that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what's Carol say? She says they tell you to smile, and they also might want some serious photos.
Oh, I never saw a smiling picture of my parents. We'll have,
No?
we'll have to look for that. They must have smiled later on in their lives. When they saw little Stevie, I'm sure they were smiling.
Okay, I got another photo that is their 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh, that's better. They're smiling there a little.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good picture of them. I'm happy you put that up. That's great. Okay.
So why don't you go ahead and take a shot at answering the question? Who are you most like, your mom or your dad?
I thought about that quite a lot, and I made a list: the good qualities of my mother, the good qualities of my father, and the conclusion I came to, I have the best of both of them because I'm putting up things like dependable. Both parents were dependable, and so I learned from them I'm dependable. And generous in different ways. My mother was generous. My father was very generous. If he was on a job and he knew you, he treated you, he gave you that extra spoonful, that extra piece because he knew you. And also what I remembered in the generous department, we had what they call in Yiddish a pushki. I don't know another word for it, but on top of the refrigerator, there was a blue and white container. And anytime there was some spare change, they put those coins in the pushki. And this was in the 20s, and this was the Depression era. But if they had the coin, they put it in. So the two of them felt the same way about that. And they were both family oriented, devoted to the family. I don't recall that they had friends other than family. And so I kept thinking of all these things. And so I have a bit of the good of them in me a lot. Some of the things, like my mother, she was a smiler. My father was not a smiler. I can't remember him going around the house with a smile or telling a joke. He was a serious man. And my mother, she was always smiling, and she went around the house singing. I can't carry a tune, but I can smile. So I got that from my mother. And so I got the best of the two of them. She was a homemaker. She didn't get out into the world. My father worked hard, very dependable. Snowstorm, heavy rains, whatever. Shall I answer that question?
Bruce Jones wants to know what
they
did for a living. Yeah.
Okay. The only thing I know about my mother before she got married, when she lived in Russia, her family had a cafeteria, a bakery, and the only thing she ever told me about her childhood and her growing up years is that she worked in that bakery and she helped produce the coffee cakes. And when the soldiers came in, she served them the coffee cakes and they were thrilled. They loved her coffee cakes. So that's what my mother did. And once she got married, she was at home. She didn't work at all. She was just a homemaker. My father was in the catering business, in the restaurant business. And I think what they called them in those days, he was a counterman. And so he didn't, I don't think he ever waited on, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but my impression is he was behind the counter and you came in and you ordered your food from the counterman. And like I said earlier, if he knew you got a more generous spoonful of whatever it is you ordered. So everyone knew Dave and they waited for him to wait on them. And that's how he made a living. Sometimes he worked on a Sunday and then he waited on tables and he made extra money because money was for the birds then. He was lucky he had a job. So he put all his energies into his job. But
that was Bruce's question. So that was good. He wants to know what's happening with my wall here, and I can explain it, but someone just messaged me on my phone to try and join us, but you can't do it that way. So I just put a link in the comments. If anyone wants to join in on camera, click that link and I'll bring you on the show.
Okay.
Actually, so Bruce, we have the guitar, we have my my door handle, so there's a this is a door handle here because I am familiar with this guy who did surveys of doors that aren't right. So if you saw a door like this and it was a door that you were supposed to push, it would be designed wrong because it looked like a door you're supposed to pull. It's called a Norman door, a door that's designed incorrectly. If it's a door with a handle like this and you're supposed to pull it, it's not designed right. So that's what this is here for. It's like a little sidetrack, but that would be an example of why I'm like my father. For the technical details of how the door is supposed to work.
Okay.
That's something that he would be interested in.
Right.
So there's a little example of what's, the story about what's happening on my wall. Now Bruce says, no, the wall in the second photo. I'm not sure what that means. Okay. So I showed him how to get on the show. I told him about my wall, which he didn't really want to know about.
All right.
You talked about your mother and how you got your smiley smiling from her, which I then got from you.
Okay.
The smiley smiling.
That's good. That's good. And it's just a natural. Sometimes I don't know that I'm even smiling, but people notice that about me. But it just comes naturally. That's how I grew up. Oh, there I am with my friends. Yeah.
So this is on my part of the story of what parent am I like, and I'm a 50-50 too, which we both know that. But the people who are watching probably don't know that. So you and your smiliness and you're making friends and being outgoing, I get that from you, which you got from my grandmother, your mother.
Right.
And here you are with your good friends.
Right. That's right. The closest friends there. Yep. Yep. So something I got from my mother, which would appear to be a negative, but fortunately for me, I worked it out to be a positive. When I was a little girl, I was very sheltered. I'm an only child, and I didn't have a brother or sister to fight with, to laugh with. I was just me. And so when it came time that I could go to school, that was a big deal, very exciting for me. So I went to school. I don't know what time I had to be there, but I was the first one in line because I was anxious to get with other kids and get an education. And my mother was different that way. So in a funny way, you can look at it this way. It's in a funny way because she didn't go for an education. I went for it. There was a time, I don't know how old I was, but at that time they offered classes to people who had come from a foreign country. An adult could take these classes, and the school was right across the street from me, but she didn't take advantage of it. And even though I was a kid, I don't know how old I was then, but I could never understand why she just didn't go across the street and get some education. And so that pulled me even more to go get the education. And then there was a time when I had an opportunity, maybe I was a late teenager, when I was invited by friends to go on a trip. And this was a cruise. And that would have been a great thing for me to do. But my mother couldn't see it. She had never traveled. She only traveled from Russia to this country. So she stayed in her little cocoon. And as a kid, fortunately, I realized there's something else out there and I have to go find it myself. And so I did. And then when I was able to, I went on these things myself. And so that's how I did that. So we were different that way. And my father was just a very hardworking man and spent his life working because he had to support the family. And that was a big thing with him. And the only relationships that I can recall that he had was with his cousins, sisters, and a little something with relationships with people that he worked with. Because when the restaurant was not busy, he pulled up with his buddies and they played cards.
Mm-hmm.
So that was his fun time. But other than that, I don't know. I don't think he ever did anything for fun, but he was just working. And maybe we, as a family, went to visit relatives by streetcar. We took the streetcar and we went to visit his sisters. And so that was a nice time. We had a good time. They were wonderful people. So we had a great time with them. But otherwise, he didn't have any social life. But the big deal was he played cards with the guys at work.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so I was aware of all these things, and I wanted more than that.
Mm-hmm. Let's bring Bruce Jones in, my good friend Bruce. Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Millie. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Very good.
Good.
It's great to hear your stories. They're not all that different than listening to what my mother and grandparents would talk about also. So How old was your mother when she came to the United States?
She was, I'm not sure. I think she could have been 20. She was not she was not a kid. So she was under a handicap already because she came in a little too old to learn easier. So she maybe was having trouble fitting in or didn't even try. I don't know.
Did she speak English really well?
A little.
A little.
I speak very good Yiddish. My mother did not speak. I don't think she spoke much English. So she spoke to me in Yiddish, and the only way we could communicate was if I spoke her language.
Wow. And did your father also come from Russia, or was he?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
They came about, I think, the same time, and somehow I don't know how they met.
Yeah.
I never heard that story. And it's too late now. I don't know how they met.
That's similar to my mother's parents. Both came from Ireland separately, and then met here somewhere, and then did the same thing.
How did they meet?
I don't know. I don't know actually that either. That's a really good question. I'm going to be talking to my sisters tonight. We have a regular call like you and Steve do, and so I'm going to ask that question.
Oh, I'd be interested in that answer. Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah. No, my grandfather was a Boston policeman, and he had come from Ireland. And by joining the U.S. Army and fighting in World War I, you became a citizen. And so he came back and joined the Boston Police Department. And then
good.
My grandmother, I think, was just a housewife. I don't think she ever had any job. But those are actually two really good questions. Did my grandmother work? And how did they meet? Because my sisters are more in tune to all that.
How did they meet in those days? Yeah. Talking about professions, my grandfather was progressive. He had a grocery store. And I remember as a child going to visit him in his big grocery store on Arlington Street in Chelsea. That's where people shopped. They got there, they got all the good stuff. And he had a shop there. And when I was a kid, we would go there. And they had a section there where they sold loose beans. Beans didn't come in boxes like lima beans and all these other beans. No, they were loose. And well, what I did, and they allowed me, I played with those beans. I could mix them up, and the customers were there, and I'm handling all the beans. My parents never yelled at me. I don't ever remember being disciplined. And
How old were you? How old were you when you were playing with the beans?
I might have been 8, 9. A youngster. Oh, and what else I did? I had no toys. So what else I did? My father had a lamp in the living room, and the lamp had strings. I don't know what you call them, but as a decoration, they had
fringe, right? Around the edge.
They had fringe.
Yeah.
So I did, and they never yelled at me. I just think of it now. I used to braid the fringe. Those were my toys. I didn't have toys. I had a baby carriage. I had a doll, but I don't remember much of any other toys.
Wow.
So, but that was growing up. In that same vein, my mother and my father, neither one of them ever complained. Whatever it was.
Yeah, I don't remember mine they never complained either. They didn't. You're right. I think it's just that generation. They came out of the Depression. They came through a lot of struggles. They came through some wars. It was
right.
Things weren't that easy. And
no, they never complained. And whatever they had, they made the most of it. Well, my mother got a hold of a chicken. She would go to the slaughterhouse, and she would choose the chicken that was running around. And she took that chicken home, and she flicked the chicken. They didn't do it for you. She had to get all the things out of the chicken. She would cook that chicken and get every single morsel out of that chicken. They made the most of whatever they had.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. Did you go, when you were raising Steve, did you go back to your parents and have like Sunday dinners or meals and things like that on a regular basis? Yeah.
After I got married, they invited us up just about every Sunday
for
dinner. And if I ever invited them, I remember when I first got married and Thanksgiving came around, I wanted to have Thanksgiving in my house. and my mother wouldn't let me do it. She had to have the dinners. So for years, we went there not only for holidays, frequently for a big dinner.
Yeah, I think that's a tradition. I mean, I had the same tradition. We went every Sunday to my grandparents. They lived in Dorchester, and we would go there, and they would have, you know, lamb or meat or something like that. And then she always made the baking powder biscuits. That was our favorite thing. And she would just put the pile of flour on the top of the dishwasher, I think, or the counter, wherever was her counter, and then she just dropped the eggs and dropped the thing, and it was like she'd just go like this, and there they were. And they were like, and my sisters have the recipe, and it took them years to figure out that it was Crisco that made that flavor, that really good flavor. Yeah,
that was the best. I had a cousin who used to make fried fish, and she'd have us over, and it was delicious. My cousin Ann Lewis, and I asked Ann for the recipe because I wanted to make the fish like her. She gave me the recipe. It was never like hers. And until I found out she used Crisco, but she never told me. And I was just using butter or oil, and different Crisco will do it for you.
Right. It's a miracle. It's a miracle grease.
Well, that obviously should have been part of the recipe.
My mother had no recipes. She just put in just enough.
Right.
No recipe, just enough.
I remember when you tried to get her apple strudel recipe, and my father was there trying to catch the things before she threw them in the bowl to measure them, like each thing.
Right. No, she had no recipes, and I was desperate. I wanted to make that strudel like hers. But so that's what we did. We tried to catch it and measure it. Never the same. No.
Well, Daddy figured out to buy that frozen Greek phyllo dough.
Oh, yeah.
And use that for the strudel because that was really, really thin, and that was closer to, you know, making it right.
That's right. No, that was her. It wasn't her secret. But what I couldn't figure out was how come all these people, my girlfriend's parents, they had the same so-called recipe as my mother, but they didn't have a real recipe either.
Oh.
Tastes like my mother's because they came from Europe somewhere and they all made it the same way.
Uh-huh.
I could never understand that one.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So how old did your grandparents, your parents live, Millie? How did they go?
My grandparents?
I mean, your parents.
Oh, they lived both of them lived into their 80s. They were early 80s. Okay. Yeah, they died like a year apart. Oh, the same date. Two of them died 1 year apart in the fall. Wow. When I get a notice from the funeral parlor, every year they tell me the date. It's the fall.
It's the fall. Died. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And my father, my mother died before my father, which I always thought that was good because he was like her caretaker more. He managed the money. He managed all that stuff. And my mother cooked and baked she was the homemaker.
Right.
So that's the way that worked.
Yeah, it was sort of the traditional roles, and they could kind of keep doing that same thing. So
right. Today it's different. The women are more independent and they can do things for themselves. Yeah. Hard, but they can do them.
And where did you grow up? Where was your childhood?
Chelsea, Massachusetts.
Chelsea. Okay.
Nice little town.
Yeah, no, it's not that far from the water and part of Boston, and let's go from there. So
yeah, when I went to work when I got out of high school, going from Chelsea to Boston was okay. I could do it.
Yeah, there's a train, or I think there's a train.
Right. And then a few years later, my girlfriend got a car and she could drive. And I was one of her passengers, Shirley Levine. She would pick me up. She had a few people, and we would all drive in together. So that made going into Boston better, easier.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mother has passed away, but she would be she's about the same age as you are now. Uh-huh. Would be, and she had lots of wild stories. She was a secretary and went to one of the secretary schools when she was in her 20s, and then met my father at an engineering company. She was a secretary and he was an engineer, and they met there. And then she went back to college when we were teens. She went back to college and got her degree. And it was one of her most proudest things that she did, was to get that degree.
Great.
She really, really wanted it. So that was kind of fun for her. So.
It was a big thing.
Yeah, it was a really big thing. I think there was a lot of women at that time who really wanted to lead a different life, but because of the sort of the circumstances, they were confined into the life that they had.
I remember my mother did about education with. They must have told her that she had to, if she wanted to become a citizen, she had to take a class because they were going to ask her questions. So she studied for the class and got her license. I never heard about that after that, but that she did do. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But she wasn't a bridge lady or a mahjong lady or even bingo. Nothing. Just a homemaker, baker, cooker, smiler. Yeah.
That's cool. That's really fun. I'm looking at my wall. I reorganized my office, and see, I put all my musical instruments around myself too, just like Steve has his.
Excellent. Excellent.
So they have a mandolin right there, and a ukulele there, and a guitar right there.
Yep. And then you have your books, and they're on nice little stands. Yep. Very good.
Yep. Yeah, kind of it was really messy before, and I've now cleaned up my shelves right here behind me and highlighted some of the different books I have. So it's
wonderful.
I'm much more pleased with it. So
why do you have your books on a shelf?
Yeah, they're on a shelf. I have quite a few books, and not all of these. This one here, I didn't write. That's Bill Gates's book, but I just like the book. It's a really good book on climate. But the other ones are popular sellers. This one's one of my map books, and this is my music book that I've written. And Steve has seen these books over the years. He's seen many of these books, and so this is my newest book. Whoops, where is it? Everything's backwards. This is on how to sell your book. So that's my newest book.
What's the name of the book?
How to sell your book.
So that's interesting.
So it documents all the different things I've done to help sell books. So.
Okay. I've been going through my books, and a lot of them I got rid of. But the one Steve has given me over the years, something maybe written by you, something written by someone else. So I get to know some of his writing friends. Those books I have.
Right. C.C. Chapman. You have C.C. Chapman's book, Ann Handley's book, my book, your book.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Those are important books.
Those are good. Yeah. No, that's really good. That's really good.
So what about you, Steve? What did you gain from your parents? What are the good things about your parents that you got?
Well, the answer to that, I did save a couple photos, so let's take a look and see what we have here. So, Bruce, this is my father.
Okay.
And he worked at the GE, and he was a technical writer, editor in the GE aircraft engine group. And this is a picture of him at his desk. You notice anything?
Just nothing. It's flat.
Totally clean. Very neat.
Huh.
Very neat and organized. So I get that from him, being very neat and organized. That's obviously a good one. And let's see what else we have here. This next one is him doing some magic. So he bought all these books on magic and learned how to do tricks and things. And then he went to hospitals and did little magic tricks, for the patients, the children patients. So I thought that was really fun. And
people go and sing at hospitals. They take their musical instruments, but you don't hear about people doing magic very often. That's unusual. Oh, there you are.
So there I am with my little kid magic tricks, so he was pretty much like a showman when he went on. It's weird. He's like, dichotomy. He was very quiet, but also he was outgoing. I think today they call it an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert or an ambivert.
Yes, yes.
But he was not that outgoing and kind of quiet in social situations, but put him on the stage and he was very outgoing.
Right.
So I think I'm very similar to that. I don't mind being by myself and things, but I love being on stage too and being outgoing like that. So I think that's how we're similar. Let's see. The other thing I got from him is there we are in our pool. This was our 3-foot deep pool, and we had that in the backyard, and it was really fun. That pool, it was small, but it gave us tons and tons of fun. But in order to have the pool, it was my job to maintain that pool. So my father taught me how to, clean the pool, clean the filter. He gave me these different jobs, cutting the grass, and taught me how to do everything. And everything had to be done the correct way, exactly as he said. Do the lawn from here to there, back and forth, and like all of this organizational skills about handling these household things. That's all him. So I got that from him, right, Ma? You would have to agree on that.
Yes, yes.
I mean,
we were lucky in our house. We had a small house. In our bedroom, we had 2 closets, one for my husband and one for me. And he was the organized one. And I'm not messy, but I'm not a perfectionist like he was. So it was great. That house came with 2 closets. Ever hear that one, Steve?
Oh, no, I know that his closet was totally organized, because if you looked at each pant hanger, they had labels on them that said brown pants, black pants. So every pair of pants had to go exactly on the hanger. Every tool had to go on the workbench in its place, so you would know where to get it the next time.
Right,
but, so every tool here in my house is like that. So let me share you one more photo.
Every tool has a home. That's what I always call it. Every tool has a home. So
this is my father being creative, going to kill the wasps. And what he has on his head, Bruce, I don't know if you can tell, but back in the day, they had these nets for a picnic. You would put them on the food to keep the flies away.
Right. Over the salad or whatever it is, right?
Yep. So he has attached 2 of those together around his head. And the thing is his jacket's all buttoned up to the top. I actually remember this day because, this is what he did to go get the wasps. It was,
What are the red and the green things? Are those like hangers? See on the sides? Go back to that picture for a second. There's a.
Oh, those are just the things where you would push it and it would pop open, or you push it and it would expand or close up.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. That's funny, huh, Mom?
Flip together all the way around. So. Well, you don't want to get stung, so it probably works.
Yep. And then here we'll share one more from my mother, which is I really love to cook, and so does my mom. And here she is with. Do you know the chef, Mr. Food?
Mr. Food in Florida, yes.
He was on TV syndicated on shows. This is before all the cooking shows, but I know Mr. Food, and there she met him, and there's with the cookbook, Ma. You remember that?
Oh, yes, and that cookbook I still have. I don't cook anymore, but the book I have, and he was a fun person. His recipes were easy, and I was delighted when I met him in person. And we had that little get together there. He was great. Oh, I'm glad you showed that one, Steve.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And he's got a good name, Mr. Food. I mean, it's, how can you? That's it. It's simple. It's right to the point. Mr. Food.
Oh, Steve made me a cookbook. Before he went to college, he asked me to write up the recipes that I was making. And I guess he took them to school with him because he got me to write the cookbook.
I did. I took those recipes to school, and once I lived off campus, we had, Monday night was hot dog casserole night, and Tuesday night was tuna casserole night, and Wednesday was, whatever the next thing was. But
that was good. Yeah.
the roommates loved me because I was ready to cook all the food for them.
And they were easy recipes. Open up this can, open up that can.
That's right. That's right.
That's it.
You could have Spam casserole night, and you could have potato casserole night.
Yeah. Green beans.
Green beans.
Mix. That was a good one.
Oh, that was a good one. Yep, that was a classic.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That sold a lot of green beans, cream of mushroom soup, and ONC onion rings.
Right. Yeah. Those were the good old days.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're at the end of our show. Bruce, it was great to have you join us.
Thank you, and thank you, Millie. I don't know if I've met you before, but this is. I know of you from years and years of.
Me too, Bruce. Very nice to have this visit with you.
Yes, very nice, and nice to hear you talk about your parents. That's great. That was really good.
Check them out. Check them out.
I'm going to ask my sisters those two questions tonight. How did they meet? And did they meet? And what was the other one? Was about
smiling on the camera.
Did she work?
Oh, did she work? Right. Did she work? Okay.
Oh.
All right. And I'll post my answers if I find them. So did she work? Okay. Great question.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.